The 2025 Formula One season is officially over, but the cars on track at Yas Marina this week looked unlike anything we have seen before. Lando Norris celebrated his title in gold, but Mercedes rolled out a Frankenstein machine, proving the 2026 revolution is already here. Just 48 hours after the checkered flag fell on the 2025 season finale, the paddock split into two distinct timelines. The traditional young driver test saw rookies pushing the current generation of cars to their absolute limits. Nearby, the mule cars appeared as strange, modified beasts designed to simulate the radical new regulations coming in 2026. This was more than a standard tire test. This was our first real glimpse at the future of the sport. Teams like Mercedes went beyond tweaking a wing. They bolted on prototype active aerodynamics that looked almost alien compared to the sleek machines we raced on Sunday. As the world discussed the championship fight, the engineers gathered data that could decide who dominates the next era of Formula One. The result was a bizarre timesheet where a rookie in an Aston Martin went faster than the sport's biggest legends because the veterans drove cars deliberately crippled to mimic next year's lower downforce levels. Lando Norris arrived to celebrate rather than just test. Fresh off crowning himself the 2025 world champion, the McLaren driver took to the track wearing a spectacular commemorative gold helmet that caught every ray of the Abu Dhabi sun. It was a victory lap in disguise and a chance to drive his title-winning MCL 39 one last time before it gets retired to a museum. The mood in the McLaren garage was light, contrasting with the intense pressure of the last few months. Norris was not chasing lap times. He was validating the data for the 2026 Mule car, but mostly soaking in the reality of his achievement. Seeing that gold helmet flash past the start-finish line was the defining image of the week, a final goodbye to the season that cemented his name in history. Down the pit lane, the atmosphere was much heavier. Lewis Hamilton stepped into the Ferrari garage as a driver looking for answers rather than a guest. After a difficult first season with the Scuderia, Hamilton was the first on track, determined to understand where the team needs to go for 2026. Seeing Lewis in the red race suit still feels jarring to some, but his focus was absolute. He drove the Ferrari mule car and provided key feedback on how the new Pirelli rubber interacts with the chassis. There were no smiles or waves to the crowd here. This was strictly business. Hamilton knows that the 2026 regulation reset is his best chance to put Ferrari back on top, and he treated every single lap of this test as the first step in that recovery mission. The real head-turner sat in the Mercedes garage. The team brought a mule car that looks like a science experiment gone wrong. To test the active aerodynamics required for 2026, they fitted a prototype front wing system featuring large external actuation tubing, which we would never see on a race-legal car. It was ugly, mechanical, and fascinating. This system allows the wing to physically change its angle on the straights to reduce drag, a core feature of the upcoming rules. Most teams simulated this effect with static setups, but Mercedes built a working prototype. This demonstrates the aggressive approach they are taking with the new regulations. They are not waiting for wind tunnel simulations. They want real-world data on how moving aero parts affect the airflow over the rest of the car, even if it means bolting unmatched parts onto a 2025 chassis. The term mule car requires explanation for this test. These are not the 2026 cars, as those do not exist yet. Instead, teams took their 2025 challengers and deliberately made them worse. They stripped away downforce by fitting skinny, Monza-spec wings and raising the ride height to mimic the expected performance loss of the new regulations. The FIA even imposed a strict speed limit of 300 km per hour on the straights for these cars. This prevented the engines from over-revving, since the mule cars lack the fully functional active drag reduction systems that will protect the engines in 2026. This created a strange visual on track, where the sport's fastest drivers hit a virtual wall on the straight, while rookies in the standard cars flew past them at full speed. Pirelli had a large presence here, for good reason. The 2026 tires are a completely new specification. They kept the 18-inch rim size we are used to, but the rubber itself is noticeably smaller. The front tires are now 25 millimeters narrower, and the rears have lost 30 millimeters in width. That might not sound like much, but in a sport measured in thousandths of a second, it is a huge reduction in mechanical grip. The drivers in the mule cars reported that the cars felt nervous and easier to slide, which is exactly what the rule makers want. Less grip means the drivers have to work harder. This test was important for Pirelli to ensure that these narrower tires can handle the thermal loads without overheating, a problem that has plagued the sport in the past. Due to these restrictions on the veteran drivers, the timesheets looked completely upside down. The fastest lap of the day came from young American talent Jack Crawford in the Aston Martin, rather than a world champion. He clocked a blistering time because he drove the standard, unrestricted 2025 car. Crawford was not worrying about future tire data. His job was to push the AMR25 to its absolute limit to prove he belongs in a race seat. It was a unique opportunity for the rookies to technically outpace the legends of the sport. As Hamilton and Norris managed slides in their low downforce mules, Crawford and the other juniors attacked the corners with full confidence. This reminds us that in F1, context is everything, and the fastest driver is not always the one with the quickest lap time.
Not everyone felt the need to stick around for this data-gathering mission. Max Verstappen, George Russell, and Fernando Alonso were all absent from the garage. Verstappen said he was, fortunately, allowed to skip it, showing just how exhausting the 24-race 2025 calendar has been. For these drivers, the benefits of driving a compromised mule car were not worth cutting into their winter break. They trust their teams to gather the data with reserve drivers. It also highlights a shift in mentality. The veterans know that the simulator correlation is so good now that they do not necessarily need to drive a Frankenstein car to understand the 2026 concept. They prefer to rest now and hit the ground running when the real new cars launch next February. As the veterans rested, Kimi Antonelli proved why he is Mercedes' chosen future. The young Italian completed a marathon rather than just a drive. Antonelli logged a staggering 157 laps in the Mercedes mule car, which is nearly 3 full Grand Prix distances in a single day. He was the one tasked with testing that experimental front wing, managing the complex systems while providing constant feedback to the engineers. His stamina and consistency were the talk of the paddock. In a car that was physically difficult to drive due to the reduced downforce, Antonelli never faltered. This performance silenced any lingering doubts about his readiness. Mercedes put the weight of their 2026 development on his shoulders for this test, and he carried it without breaking a sweat. This test confirmed that 2026 will serve as a hard reset for everyone.
The feedback from the mule cars suggests the new machines will be trickier to drive, with less grip and more active systems for the driver to manage in the cockpit. The visual of Mercedes' active wing prototype proves that the engineering war has already moved away from pure aerodynamics to complex, movable mechanical systems. We are moving toward an era where the car changes its shape on the fly, and the team that masters this technology first will have a large advantage. For Lando Norris and McLaren, the challenge will be defending a title in a changing world. For Hamilton and Ferrari, the chaos of new regulations offers a ladder to climb back to the top. For rookies like Crawford and Antonelli, these difficult cars represent an opportunity. If the veterans struggle to adapt to the lower grip, the kids might just have a chance to steal the spotlight.
The 2025 season is history, and the first shots of the 2026 war have already been fired in Abu Dhabi.
If you want to stay ahead of every technical twist and driver move this winter, hit that subscribe button right now.